I could tell that the walls of the rooms were originally white, but years of dirty hands, sun, and time had made them dull. The yellowish hue from the fluorescent lights hanging above didn't help. But thankfully, the generic floral pictures hanging near the man sitting on the edge of the bed provided some semblance of joy. Nothing else in the room did, especially me. I was in a nursing home. The man sitting on the edge of the bed was my father, and this would be the last day I would see him alive. In healthy father-son relationships, when the parent dies, the child mourns. But considering that more than 20 years had passed since my father and I had seen each other, you could say we didn't have a healthy relationship. When I was in elementary school, he would occasionally pick me up on the weekends, and we'd watch Detroit Tigers on the television in his kitchen. I once spent an entire summer with him watching baseball and learning how to fish. Then one day, without explanation, he stopped coming around. I once ran away from my mother's home, showed up at his place begging for him to take me in, and he drove me back without hesitation. More than 5 years would go by before I would see him again. Another 3 after that. Then, finally, some 20-odd years later, in a dingy room of a nursing home in a suburb of Detroit. I used to say that 23 chromosomes and disappointment were the only things my father contributed to my life. It was my way of laughing through the pain I couldn't acknowledge. Over time, the desperation to be a part of his life turned into resentment and anger over him not wanting me to be a part of his. When my mother told me a couple of years ago that he had Alzheimer's disease, I coldly replied, "He didn't know me before. What does it matter if he doesn't recognize me now?" I'm aware such an admission reflects poorly on me, but I didn't write this to make myself look good. I don't pretend I've evolved or that I have all the answers. I write this because we all have our struggles. I've been poor and I've been rich. I've been another face in the crowd and a face on television, inside a crack house and a guest at the White House. And at each juncture of my life, the demons regarding my father followed. They had an open invitation courtesy of the anger I kept in my heart. It wasn't until my son asked why hasn't he met his grandfather that I realized how foolish I had been. I wasn't trying to protect my kid. I was trying to punish an absentee father, losing sight of the fact that forgiveness isn't for the offender, but for the offended. I went to the nursing home hoping to jog his memory, like a scene from The Notebook. I took my phone out to FaceTime so my son could see and talk to his grandfather for the first time. And I went to the nursing home to say, "I forgive you." Unfortunately, the disease had progressed too far. He smiled, but he didn't know who I was. My son was happy to see his grandfather's face, but no conversation ensued. My father was incapable of comprehending what was being said or forming sentences of his own. I looked him in the eyes and told him, "I forgive you." But if he understood, he didn't show it. In March, I learned my father died. I didn't cry. Instead, I mourned the fact that I didn't care enough about him to cry. I thought about all the time I let slip by because I wanted to show everyone how strong I was. I thought about the memories I had robbed my son of. And I thought, you don't always know what people are going through when they hurt the ones they love. And you may never find out if you don't have enough forgiveness in your heart to ask. I went to the nursing home that day because I was finally ready to ask. The reward for my foolish pride is spending the rest of my life without an answer. On Father's Day this year, I woke up to several text messages from well-wishers. Some friends gave me a card raving about what a great dad I am. My son sent his love. I checked the baseball scores to see if the Tigers won the night before. They did, 7-5 over the Chicago White Sox. I closed my eyes and I could see a little boy watching the tigers with his dad in the kitchen. I saw them fishing. I saw them talking. I guess he did have a positive impact on my life after all. I opened my eyes, stared at the bright white ceiling in my room, and finally allowed the tears of my father to fall, whispering, "I hope you found it in your heart to forgive me too." I wrote that piece a couple of years ago for Father's Day. It was cathartic for me, but more importantly, I hope it was helpful for someone else who was able to stop themselves from making the same mistakes that I did. During this period of the pandemic, with the coronavirus and such uncertainty, we've all been encouraged to check up on our loved ones. But if you're like me and you have a tendency to hold a grudge, there's probably somebody in your life that you're not checking up on, not because you don't care, but because you don't have the strength to let go of past hurt and past pain. I hope the story that I shared with you would encourage you to get past that hurt, to move past that pain. Because I can tell you from personal experience that when you don't have an opportunity to talk to that person, when you no longer have a chance to ask them all those questions you always wanted to ask, there's no consolation in being able to say, "I was a stronger person." Instead, there's only regret.